Oxnard, California, we're about 850 million in assets.
Thank you, Rick. And that's been a pretty successful story over the last few years. I know the growth that you all have had. So maybe we can, hopefully you can give us some AI insights to how that's happening.
Sure. We're just babies, but yeah, we're listening like everyone else is. Yep.
Sure. Kevin?
Kevin Nelson, I'm the COO of our mortgage division here at Plains Commerce Bank.
Where are you based, Kevin, if you don't mind?
Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Okay. Judson?
Yeah, Judson Murray. I am a data analyst in this space. I've been around data analytics, and I'm really sort of more new to this space, so maybe bring a slightly different perspective here. I know probably one of the younger members on this call. I'm really excited and interested to hear the different perspectives about how AI is making its way into the marketplace. I've done a lot of work with AI on the programmatic side, but I'm really just excited to see the different use cases and how it's playing out.
Fantastic. And Dan?
Hi, I'm Dan Schmidt, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Green Country Federal Credit Union. We're in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we have not used AI for anything, nor have we experimented yet. We're just really not there. We're trying to figure all this out and how we can use it. And obviously, I know we can use it in chat boxes, but there's 1,000 other ways we can use it. But there's been about 100 other things in the way of that at the moment, but we still need to find out what's going on. So that's kind of why I'm here.
Fantastic, yeah. And we having done this like a few times, I'm happy to share certain examples, or I think there's a note in there. Judson, did you just place a note in there?
Yeah, sorry, I'm calling today from Clearwater, Florida. I just forgot to mention where.
Yes, yeah. So then, I'm happy to share some notes or any thoughts that we've had around this. Typically, what we're hearing a lot, obviously, is that there is chatbots is a big thing. Chatbots is, I shouldn't say necessarily a big thing. Probably the most mature AI solution out there, just because they've been around for a while. But we'll jump into the questions and we'll make it somewhat informative and we'll discuss it there. So let me maybe start with you, Kevin. Just the first question I had is listed. What is the one in AI initiative you want to prioritize in 2026, and what has made that become the biggest initiative for you all?
I want to say we have one that's probably the biggest initiative. We're focused on with our retail and our wholesale division for mortgage. It's the continued steer and compare side of it. Of how can we have our people focus on exceptions rather than the constant stare and compare of documents back and forth and the indexing of all the documents. So our biggest thing is keeping up with the different third parties out there. We don't have a development shop, so we're not doing anything in-house at all. It's all external third parties that we plug in and work with. But it seems like what one develops, then 6 months later, there's the next one that has new features and everything. So it's trying to keep people away from chasing squirrels per se the whole time, and focusing on, okay, right now it may not be, but if we keep jumping, all we're going to be doing is implementing new software for a long time to try to keep up with that. So it's really digging into what is that company's process of development, and what are they putting back into their software? Or are they just a startup that's going to try to bring up their revenue and then sell off and not really push back into their development process and expand on their language models? Are they really built to build the best product out there? And that's really where we struggle, is how do you really dig in, make sure we're partnering with the right third parties.
I was talking to a bank not too long ago, and they invested in a company. Loved the idea. It was a little bit of a give back. I think it was a rewards-based give back product. And I think within a year, and because of that investment, it helped the company. They found a few other folks that were going to use it. And within a year and a half, they came back and tripled the pricing and all of this. So they didn't sell the company, but all that success suddenly changed. And so this company had to go back and reevaluate whether they were going to continue to use that solution or not because of that. But it's the same sort of ideas, all the success, the changes that are coming. How do you keep up with that? How do you keep up with them? And in the AI space right now, you are finding a lot of organizations, especially the newer and younger ones that don't make, that are this the fallout of ones that actually survive and not. Great ideas don't necessarily survive. It's great ideas with great management. So somewhere along the way, I think there'll be a bit more of a clarity that comes around with that. Dan, I'm going to pass it over to you. As you know, I know you said you all aren't doing much. Um, how large is the credit union? And sort of when you think about, um, even if it is in the number of members that you have, when you think about 2026, what are you thinking? Where do you think AI could help you all?
Well, we had touched upon it. Well, both of us did, about using, at least start out with chat box and see how that works. Now, we're only 135 million in assets, so we're pretty small, although we're going to merge in another small credit union. So we'll end up being, I don't know, 160, 170 million in assets. Still small, still very small. And
Yep.
so, the budget's not necessarily there to be too much. Although, like I had mentioned, chatbots might be the way to start, but there are other things that we can eventually use. For example, you have to see all sorts of accounting uses for it. We just haven't delved into that too far, and it doesn't necessarily have to be sophisticated AI to do that. It just needs to be fairly useful in the accounting space. We do a mountain of reconciliations, and so much of it is manual. Just automating some of that and using AI for reporting and harvesting some useful data out of that could prove pretty valuable.
For sure. For sure. I think there's a lot going on in terms of quick wins that you can get. I'd be interested to hear, maybe as the conversation goes on, what kind of accounting accounting type AI big, but I'm sure it's out there. I kind of joke sometimes. I present on this and I give the QuickBooks example, because QuickBooks has this: if your invoices aren't paid, it's kind of stretched to accounting, but if your invoices aren't paid, they have a reminder option. You can click and it'll send a reminder to the person that hasn't paid it. And they give you variations in there. Do you want it to be stern, or do you want it to be a friendly reminder? Depending on how long it's been since, how overdue they are, and you can modify it. And it's all AI written. And some of it's actually a little funny, because you can even be humorous about that. I think they have a humorous option. So we'd definitely be interested in hearing a little bit more about that. Judson, what are you hearing? I know you're just coming into the workforce, but what is from an analyst and a young analyst, and maybe even as a graduating student, what have you seen and heard?
Well, from my perspective, I get a lot of split opinions. The people that I were studied with and have done projects with and things, they tend to be all for AI. They love AI. They think it's, next best thing that's going to revolutionize everything. And then, when I speak to more people, like in the credit union space, for example, there seems to be a lot of apprehension about it. And I think, just trying to get to a point where you have a large enough scale of an operation to use AI, like a large enough use case to utilize it, is when people really start to see the effectiveness of it, especially for things like reporting and data collation, and like Dan, you mentioned, there are some pretty easy efficiency tasks. And the larger the scale, I think the more effectiveness you get out of it as well. So that might ease some of the apprehension that I seem to encounter. I think it's also an experience thing. AI is a pretty new concept, new technology, and I think it's a lot of, as people learn more about AI, they'll become more comfortable with it too. So that might account for some of the apprehension and sort of fear that I tend to see with it.
Just a slight follow-up to you, Judson. How do they teach it in university? I mean, is there active teaching of AI, or is it just a test? Go use Copilot. I mean, how is it taught?
So in my experience, though, I studied data analytics and data science when I was in college and in grad school and stuff. So a lot of teaching went around it, but I can also speak for some of my friends, like my girlfriend and stuff, who didn't necessarily go down as much of a technical path. And it's not a lot of education surrounding AI in terms of what it is. There's a lot of pushback against AI, of like, you can't use it to do X task or write a paper or whatever it may be, but not a lot of, hey, we should be teaching people how to use AI alongside your other tasks as an efficiency tool, as Dan, you mentioned, or something, as a helpful aid instead of something to be adversarial against.
Yeah. Rick, I'm going to pass it on to you. When you think of 2026, why does it, what initiative are you thinking of, and why does it matter? Why is that, how's that become the primary initiative for you when it comes to AI, within your AI initiatives? Yeah.
I mean, for our situation, we just did a bunch of conversions to get on the right systems. We just did a big card conversion and everything, and 2026 is now how do we perfect it? And we think that there's a lot about making things easier, making things more effective. A couple areas, I have an audit background originally, a former examiner, and I always think about file maintenance. And when I look at the way we do file maintenance manual, where somebody is just looking through reports trying to find the needle in a haystack, it's just not effective. And I think AI could be used so much to look at member activity to say, hey, this is abnormal for this member to do it. Let's call an alert. I think a lot of this stuff, we could definitely reduce fraud. I just had I met with the California Credit Union League, and we had a big middle-sized credit union meeting. And one of the topics that came up, and this is the first time we've ever heard about it, is really downsizing the back office workforce because of efficiencies. There isn't many credit unions that are actually getting efficient, but there's a couple out there. There's some leaders and there's some processes where they're getting automated processing to where they can actually downsize staff. Also, there's some call center modules out there that are pretty decent. I know Eltropy is a pretty good leader where you can try to stump him and you can't stump the agent. You can talk to him about bank robbery or inflation or anything, and it's pretty darn good at getting you back in town, and it's pretty amazing. And there are some credit unions that have downsized some of those phone calls to agent calls. So how can we become more efficient in this area? Also marketing, the fact that we now have cards inside, we have so much data information, how can we personalize to make it more effective or a better product? So there's a lot of opportunities for us.
I was wondering if Kevin had anything to say about that, because I know from a process standpoint, the idea of document verification or using AI to be better about figuring out where the exceptions lie can have a back office staffing implication as well.
No, 100% it can. Some of the struggle there is, especially in the mortgage industry, the variable side of the documents that come in. We see, take for our indexing provider, for example, great on a closed loan package, almost 100% all the time, but it comes to a initial package and documents that come in, it's maybe 75%, which is great. It's got 75%, but we're still managing those exceptions. And that's where we see not all of the providers have really developed an exception, a good UI for the exception dealing for those documents. Or they just throw them into one folder and then you got to start piecing out. And if it took call it a 50-page business tax return, and then for some reason it pulled out 2 pages out of that, now I don't know where that exactly went, and I have to go back and do some research. So it can take longer to that degree, but we're working on some income, asset, bank statement calculations. For easy stuff, it works great, but still for the complicated issues, you're still having that time wait of, is it really saving time? I wouldn't say so yet. Is it probably helping in a quality and air side of it? Yes.
Thank you. Hector, welcome to the meeting. Thank you so much for joining. We did a round of introductions. We kind of got into the first couple of questions, but I'll give you a chance to jump in on the first one. So basically, I'd love an introduction as well. The first question really we're talking about is, if you had to pick, what's the one big AI-based initiative for 2026, and how'd you pick it? You're on mute, by the way.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late. I had to switch because my laptop lost power here. But Hector Martin, Chief Strategy Officer at Pasadena Federal Credit Union. I'm a alumni of Ocean Air as well. It wasn't called Ocean Air when I was there, but Rick and I worked together. And so happy to see him here. This brings back memories, Rick, of when we started those other calls that turned into WeberCon. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that I feel like this is going to turn into something good. But I dive deep into AI. I use it. I'm one of those that I feel like I have to use something in order to understand it. I use it in my personal life, but we all know that when it comes to credit unions and regulation and all that, there's all of this red tape, right? And so the biggest thing for us is removing some of the red tape on our mentality. So when we had our strategic planning session for years now, everybody brings up AI. I think like board members feel like they just have to say it, right, in order to be trendy. But just saying it is not enough. And so what we did purposefully is we started doing AI 101 presentations to the board. They think AI is, and I can't speak for every board, but most people think AI is just automation. Well, that's the old stuff, right? The new stuff thinks on its own. And so just teaching them what it is, telling them how us as an industry are looking to mitigate some of these risks, because the next thing after AI is cybersecurity, that they say, right? So it's kind of like we want to say we're thinking about it, but we know that we can't do it. Well, we started talking to the board about that, and we're trying to remove the red tape even from us using it. So this year we started testing out AI for training and development. We thought, okay, well, there's not a lot of information there that if it goes out, right, there's no social security number, etc. We also got a co-pilot license, and we're not just the basic one, but the agentic one, and we're toying with agents that tie into our policies and procedures that you can pull out questions and things like that. We're setting the foundation so that our staff knows what it is that our members are expecting, right? Because if your staff doesn't know or hasn't used it, it's a little bit difficult to get them on board to say, hey, this is what members want. They don't just want a chat bot that reads the website. They want one that is more conversational or natural language models behind it. And so that's what we did. And for next year, we're planning on making our training and development more robust with AI. Is still learning, and then also introducing it into our front facing, our chatbot, not behind the login, but in front of it, with our information, as well as a little bit with automation. Rick mentioned getting the systems in place. We did a few conversions this year, and next year we plan on using AI for loan decisioning, as well as, and we'll kick that off pretty soon, as well as even some of the APIs that connect, like for members to be able to self-serve on their account and connect to our document system, our document storage system, as well as our core, so that if a member is trying to, or a non-member is trying to do something with as a beneficiary, let's say they want to, they're a beneficiary, they're trying to get their funds or something, that they're able to not extract info, but by the time we get that email, it's already told us, hey, this is the person who's trying to obtain the funds from someone who passed away. Here's the signature card. They are a member. They are not a member. By the way, this is how we can make them a member. So that's something that we've been toying with, but it requires us cleaning up some of our document. It's a long process. When we started coming up with these ideas, we looked at our documentation system and we're like, yeah, we need to clean up our documents too. So
Well,
the
I'll,
for sure we'll be moving forward with the lending and training though.
I'll tell you just from if I go back to having not only these conversations, but over the last couple of years, watching where innovation's coming, chatbots was the oldest. I mean,
Yeah.
they've been around. They have matured quite a bit, and I think Rick mentioned it too, and you did too. Like make it conversational. You can talk to it about pretty much anything. You know, where's the nearest burrito shop to anything. Like I mean, it's starting to get far smarter in how it answers those questions. So chatbots is one. The other area we've seen a lot of companies pop up is around risk AI, risk. So you got like your Zest or Synaptic, and I don't know if they're just adding the word AI at the end of it of their names or whether they actually are using AI. But I know they're using more data. They're using a lot more data in terms of third-party data and additional sort of risk underwriting metrics to lend more or to make better decisions. I shouldn't say lend more necessarily, but better risk decisions. And the third one is kind of one you touched on, which is document repositories, knowledge bases. Let me upload all my policies, and I can immediately search it. Again, that is somewhat AI, but now we're getting into more as though in the course of this year, agentic progress. So actions that are coming out of it. The agents that will run off. Okay, not only will it review the documents, but now it'll go and review all your loans to make sure they comply with those documents. So now you got an action that's sort of driven off an agentic process there. And Copilot seems to be the most popular way people are testing it on a day-to-day basis. Because I mean, that does lead a little bit into my next point, which is around the people aspect of it. You know, how do people in the organization, and Rick, I'll start with you this time, is how do people in the organization feel about it? And do you find there's apprehension? Because in the community banking and credit union world, I mean, we're talking about folks that have been there for a while. Even if you're a small bank, even if you're a small institution. So how's the view on AI in the organization, Rick? And how are
Yeah,
you
I,
addressing it?
I I think the biggest, I don't think there's a fear with my staff. There's just they're just naive about what it can do and how it can help. You know, we've got Copilot in there, and one of the big things here is, you know, we've grown a lot as a credit union. We have to put in new processes, procedures, and that was taking so long before. But now you can really combine some stuff. We've got this software called Scribe that can help you do it, even show models to it, and we can build it so that we can actually have all this backup documentation. And so we've required everybody to get their policies, procedures, and everything up to speed. And those that don't have any understanding of AI or Copilot or any of that, just they get stuck in the mud. And those that do, like on our risk management, they're already done with it. And so it's, you know, we're trying to get people on board. We probably have to start with some classes with Copilot, because Copilot can help so much, especially in the process of procedures and policies and things.
It'd be interesting. You could connect with Hector again after. I mean, he said one of the areas that's definitely happening is training and development. So,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, Dan, how are things on your end? I mean, how are people in the organization feeling about AI, and how are you sort of addressing that?
Well, right now, we have a couple of people that have some skill with, say, Copilot and Chat GPT. So
Mhm.
it's not totally foreign, but I think the concern is, you know, as we kind of discussed already, company-wide, that there's really not much knowledge base as far as how to use it or what we can do. So obviously there's training and development that needs to be done there to really get a better understanding of how to use it. And so I think that's kind of what my goal is here, is to figure out, well, I've seen lots about it. I've used it online with Copilot and Chat GPT, but using it in-house for various things, I've only, you know, seen emails from vendors about different things. And then it's not real explicit for most of them how to necessarily use it. They're just saying, well, here it is. It can do this, this, and this, but it's not really as specific as I was expecting. And it may just be, well, that's kind of the way the industry is to some degree. We haven't defined a lot of those things. And so I think that's where we are right here. A lot of this is just somewhat in the beginning, and we're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and you know and like I mentioned, we've been doing these AI roundtables. Now we've done a couple of them live ones, and we in and around Virginia, which is where I'm based, and we're actually having one in Arizona in early January. I think we've already got about 8 or 10 institutions that are going to be there in person. But uh, the what I would took away from that is that there is a push to or desire to have better training and development around that. And so, you know, there's interest in sharing ideas, hearing from others. I mean, Kevin, you guys seem like you've already done, I know you've got an initiative, but you've already seemed to have started down the path of doing certain things internally. whether that's in the mortgage side or whether that's beyond that. How has training and development been a factor in that? And how do people feel in the organization about AI on your end?
It's mixed emotions how people feel. So on our indexing OCR side of it, they like it. They actually get upset when it doesn't work the way they want it to. But then you go into our underwriting side with the cash flowing and asset and credit review, they're apprehensive. Well, of course, any underwriter is always afraid of their job and being replaced by technology, but at the same time, that's never going to happen. My goal is to take my underwriters from 2 to 3 today to hopefully at some point 6 a day, where they're only managing to the exceptions. Everything comes to them pretty much on the old silver platter, and that's what they want anyway. But now they're all caught up in, well, I can't trust this calculation. Well, yeah, you can. The company gives you reps and warrants over it. Trust it and go with it, especially on a easy W-2 customer that you don't have to worry about it. Now, on the business side, if this lots of tax returns and self-employment, absolutely, I'm going to be more hesitant. I want to look over that more so, just because the technology isn't that advanced to catch the ins and outs all the time. But we constantly are working with our third-party providers for training to give them the resources, giving them the feedback of what our staff is seeing. I mean, everything's got to be adjusted both sides. Our workflow can't stay the same, but at the same time, the developers on the third-party side have to listen to what the end user is really getting frustrated over and be able to cure that, because the two can't, the user can't program and the programmer is not the end user that's going to go through in and out. So really trying to deepen that partnership for us of putting some of the people that are boots on the ground and using it day in and day out, giving that feedback back to our third parties on a monthly basis of, hey, here are frustrations, and really seeing what can they take and improve that product with.
Yeah, and it's kind of there's a resurgence of that intermediary role coming around, which is the translation layer, a little bit around. I mean, obviously you can do gather feedback and then pass it back, but like that person that's doing it, we used to call them what, a business systems analyst. I think that role is making a bit of a resurgence. Hey, Judson, from your perspective, just as a what is the like I was giving the example of my son who's going to graduate at some point, wondering about what he should study because of AI. What is when I say people in your organization, I think people that are newly working, and what's the acceptance? Because I'm sure a lot of y'all are using it in universities and stuff too now. So, what's the acceptance
Totally.
around AI, and how do people feel about it?
I would say on the whole, it's accepting. I mean, I don't see a lot of fear about it. I see a lot of expectations of when other things are going to become AI or, automated or et cetera. I don't see necessarily a lot of people fearing it coming into the workforce, like fearing their ability to get a job or anything like that either. I think to Kevin's point, it's very it should I personally, and people that I interact with, they see it as an opportunity to do more with the same amount of resources. I now have AI on my side. I'm a more efficient worker, or I'm a more effective, whatever it is. I think people, from my experience, has been very positive, very optimistic about the potential that you can achieve using AI as a tool rather than seeing it again as an adversary to replace you or potentially mitigate, like be your barrier to entry.
So more productivity, higher speed, can get more done.
Yes. And obviously, like, if it's a younger person who's just now entering the workforce, you might be more naive to things like, regulatory compliance, and there's different laws that apply for how you need to utilize different systems or how you communicate with end users, or how, there's different things that aren't necessarily always considered when if you're just entering the workforce and you're maybe super naive about that. But on the whole, it's very optimistic.
Well, I
Interesting.
use the reference back to some of my staff at the most rudimentary side of it. It's like a calculator. I mean, everybody didn't trust the calculator when it came out, but now if I told you had to do everything longhand, you'd look at me like I'm crazy. You want to use
Exactly.
a calculator. That's what AI is.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I sometimes wonder also, like, from a hiring standpoint, or so the question itself is, how do you balance human expertise? And Hector, I'm going to ask you this one from with AI automation, and I was kind of thinking is like, to add to that, does it, when you think about, say, an AI initiative, and do you think about, I'm going to hire somebody who's, let's just say the younger crew's learning this in school, right? A little bit more and more. So do I hire somebody, or how do I balance subject matter knowledge between AI and technical knowledge?
Yeah, I think, I mean, even a step behind that with and to some of your points from everyone on this call, uh, corporate hasn't caught up to consumer use. So I think AI and the consumer level, in schools, at work, everywhere, they're all for it. They use it, but they think it's just most is something to just rewrite or come up with ideas for you. But it's more than that, right? It's the agentic side of it that we're talking about now on the corporate side. And Judson, you're right. I think a lot of students are not thinking of the corporate, or a lot of people aren't thinking of the governance that comes with it. And then the corporate side is thinking that's all they're thinking is the governance. And so it hasn't caught up. There's a mismatch there where people want to use it at this level, but it has this much potential and risk. And so jobs and schools are so, slow. I mean, we're still uh, reading books from the 90s, right, on economic theory and things like that. So you could imagine the push that's happening with people trying to use it for school, and the school saying, hey, no, we don't understand it yet, or we haven't set up the parameters yet to be able to allow you to use this and learn effectively with testing and all that. So I think that translates over to corporate as well. Now, to answer your question more directly on the balance between those two, I think what you said, Karan, is rightfully so. Is and we go through cycles. At first, it was like general business management was the thing to be, and then data science was the thing to be. Well, now AI does data science. We're back to generalists, and so I think it's going to keep evolving. But the I'm starting to see more now, and I listen to a lot of AI podcasts. Is that this question comes up because people freak out. Oh, my job's going to get taken away. Well, no. Now, when they're going to hire people, they want AI native, meaning that you know how to use it, you understand it, you can use it, and you'll still be doing what it is that you're doing, except now, to Kevin's point, you're getting the exceptions, you're getting the high touch. You like, for instance, a wealth management person. Oh, Robinhood could do all this for you. ChatGPT could rebalance your
Yeah.
portfolio. Okay, well, what about the connections that you have with that other broker? And what if they have that tool as well, AI? So whether you know how to use it or not as a consumer, they can do everything that used to take them hours in a second, but their touch is, hey, I know this guy who has this fund. Let me get you this connection, right? So yeah, I think it's hard to answer that question because we're not there yet. We haven't caught up to what the needs are, and AI is moving so quick that it's crazy to catch up. But at least for us, we haven't really purposefully hired with that because we don't have it in place yet. But I would imagine if we were a place that had very near initiatives like literally next year to deploy some of these things, we'd be looking for AI native, someone that understands it and uses it day to day more than just, oh, you can rewrite this for me, right?
I mean, just with our product, I mean, our product is all about marketing and personalization of content. But the number of times we get reached out to with, do you have ways to provide consult? Because a lot of organizations have ingrown, like built your own data warehouse, or you've built your own systems, and now you're expected to embed AI into it, so that so you have to actually bring in expertise that can develop that. So
Yeah.
I know that we get hit a lot with questions around, can we do certain things that are beyond the scope of our typical product, our typical offering too. So it's definitely an industry that I think people are still figuring out, what is the skill I need, what is the experience I leave in, how do I balance that with subject matter knowledge of the solution itself. So to your point, you'll always have to know. I think you'll still have to have your level of your area of expertise. Then AI might just be the one that supplements it, or differentiates it from the other person, or just ends up becoming something that's table stakes that you got to do to stay in business. You have to have it, otherwise the person down the road, the broker down the road, has it. And so
Yeah.
you want to make sure you're competitive using it. Rick, how
Yeah.
are you balancing that with people in the balancing human expertise with AI uh, automation? So automation versus human expertise on your projects, and has it affected your hiring?
Yeah, we haven't looked for those specific skill sets yet, but I know the learning and development department has really changed their role rather than being able to do all of this. Because they're kind of the knowledge center for anybody who has a question. Where's this? Where is that? And we're using an AI model there because everything is in. All of our policies are using Microsoft type products. We can do search tools and use it so that people, when they're in the call center, maybe they've had some training 3 months ago, they're running into an issue. How are they going to handle this with a member? They can actually go in and get real information, even cutting and pasting some talking points for the member to help them out and stuff. So we're getting better reference tools and happen to get all of our information front and center, and then also trying to find the gaps and so on. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing the younger people are using the AI tools much better. There is some groups here that are much better at Copilot, than others, but
Yeah, for
we're all
sure.
trying to learn. Yep.
My kids are they're experts at Copilot
Yeah.
and pretty much in Chat GPT. I
Yeah.
think they're probably single-handedly going to take that system down.
Yeah.
Some of these. Kevin, I mean, you talked about that. You said, the idea is to reduce the number of exceptions. I mean, that was the big initiative you had, and not necessarily to take away from people's roles. You want more processing and the number of exceptions, sort of reduce the percentage of exceptions rather than percentage of work. When you make hiring decisions going forward, um, is it, if you originally I thought I'm going to need, I don't know, let's just say, 3 underwriters, has that changed? And I'm giving the underwriter example. You can give it in any way,
Yep.
but has it changed your hiring decisions as you go forward?
Yeah, we constantly look at what are our return times for our production coming in, and then we're always looking at what kind of efficiencies are we getting with the technology that we're implementing, because everybody knows you don't just implement something and then all of a sudden the next day you're seeing a huge increase in your productivity. But right now, we do, if we're going to hire, are looking for that right person that's going to embrace it. Asking in the previous what technology have they worked with, and if they're more of an old school, call it an underwriter per se, yeah, it'll probably sway our hiring over to somebody who might be younger, or we've tried even more so of trying to develop that within, where we're growing them with that technology so they become used to that, rather than going out and getting the old habits that they don't want to break.
Yeah, I think definitely the willingness to change has to be a base requirement for any job, anybody
Yep.
looking to work right now. Recognizing that the job profile will change is absolute. Dan, what are your thoughts? How are you looking at human involvement versus AI automation? Are you trying to? I guess everybody's trying to do more with less, but what are your thoughts, sort of, on that particular question?
Well, there's a lot of options here that I've seen just in the short amount of time that I've been studying it. And so we realize that this technology will replace jobs to some degree. And so that's not necessarily a terrible thing. And I think there'll be an interim period where, yes, we'll hire people who have the skill sets to use this technology, but of course, not everyone will necessarily need that. We've gotten really good, and I say that for all business, of dumbing down jobs. And so that's not necessarily a terrible thing. Some jobs just don't require
Yeah,
technology. They just don't need that. And some jobs do require technology and you need some skills with it. And so we're creating a separate society, so to speak, people with all these skills and people who don't have it. But it's always been that way. and it's going to just continue that way. But it'll reach a point where you don't necessarily need skills with ChatGTP or any of these, because people will inherently learn how to use some of these, and the technologies will evolve where you don't need the skills that you have today to make it work. So we see that coming, and we know that's going to happen. We just want to get on that wheel and get that process started. Not that we're trying to get rid of people, but it's going to happen. If we don't do it now, somebody's going to come along later and start using these technologies and automate, and to the point where what we do now is pretty much going to be gone. We're going to be doing something completely different, still providing the same services, but we're just going to do it in a different way. And we know that's going to happen. Our roles will just be different. You know, my role as CFO, the staff that report to me, they won't be there. It just won't be needed. And that will be true for a lot of other jobs that we have, because the technology will be able to manage that for us. And we know that's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. So that's kind of how we view it. It's going to evolve, and we're going to start evolving it now.
Anybody have any thoughts on that? I mean, that's a look at efficiency is coming, and it's coming in all areas, and all jobs will be impacted, and potentially some will be um, gone, but redefined. I mean, I think some job roles might be gone, but people's roles and expectations will be redefined. Anybody want to say anything about that?
I don't know. I think that is true, the evolution in all of our industries, but I think the credit and the banking are going to be slower than most. I think the regulatory effect, I've already talked to NCUA about it, and they're just hyper vigilant about what the risks are and what they don't know. And of course, you know, the government regulator is always worried about the bad side. They don't care about efficiency. So, you know, and all the startup companies that are forming up that they have no history of. So they're kind of freaked out about it. So as a result, I think it's going to be a slower move by the credit unions and the banks, which could be detrimental because the fintechs already have this, and it could put them at a disability as far as the competitiveness. But it's definitely, you know, being a heavily regulated industry, the government is the worst about knowing what's going on with AI or even what they want to regulate on it.
Yeah, yeah. They are just, I know from the NCUA, they are just now, I think it was like late last year, early this year,
Yeah.
set up an analytics department. So, I mean, everybody's using data. Maybe we need to find a way to figure out what data, how do we regulate and manage and control what data you're using. And I think that's now, 15 years too late. So
Yeah.
AI will come. I
I mean,
suppose
just
maybe
think
things
of
will
the
change
day when the
faster. Give it a couple of
IRS,
years.
just think of the day when the IRS uses AI. I mean,
Rick,
you know,
Rick, you
then we've
need
come full
policy.
circle. That'll be the last group. Then the post office is next, right?
Elon Musk says I thought he was bringing it into the IRS.
Oh,
But
yeah.
sorry, Dan, what were you saying?
Uh, You just make sure you have policy. You know, that's going to be
Yeah.
the key for the regulators. Where's your policy?
Yeah.
Well, we're coming up to the hour, so I just want to end with I did have another question, so I'm going to read the question, but I also want to open it up to something else. So the last question I had is, if you're doing something with member touch points, like, or member consumer touch points, how do you think AI is going to influence your outreach to your consumers in 2026? Or if you have a question that you want to pose back to the group, something that you want to talk about, or you want to ask, maybe Judson, I'll start with you because do you have any thoughts around either a question or I guess consumer outreach may not be your thing yet, but go ahead.
Yeah, my question would be, what do we see as being the biggest barrier to entry? Like if you wanted to get AI set up, is it lack of knowledge? I heard a lot of people sort of on this call seem to think, it's not that my team doesn't want to use AI or is apprehensive about it, but it's just a sort of lack of experience. Is that sort of seems to be the biggest drawback, or is it regulatory concern or anything like that? I guess would just be curious as to what everyone has to say.
Yeah,
Hector?
I think regulatory is a big one, but also if you look at the average age of our members in credit unions, it's pretty high. And so we usually go by, we can't do everything, right, in the next strategic year. And so when you look at the average age of your member, and it's a little bit higher, that might not be the first thing that you take care of. But then you say, okay, well, we're investing in the future, our future member, and then we look at our staff, and yeah, the front staff uses it and wants to use it, but who are the people driving the policy making? Who are the people driving the strategy? They're not 21 years old, right? And so there's that gap in between the age demographic and the decision makers inside the credit union and the people we serve, and the bodies that regulate us are almost set for being too late to the game, right? And so regulatory is one that's written out, but the thing, the one that's not written is just the makeup of our industry as a whole.
Kevin, you were saying
Hector,
something too, right? Sorry, good.
yeah, no, I kind of a question back to Hector. Do you feel with that, with credit union, the members being on the older generation, do you feel like you miss out then on attracting a younger generation without having call all the bells and whistles of technology?
Something's got to give. We've had that conversation in our strategic plan, and I always lead with maybe we are an older member credit union, and that's who we are. And the younger ones will get older at some point. We just have to be ready to catch them, serve the ones we have today, because a lot of times I hear credit unions say we need to shift that number down. Well, maybe we don't. Maybe we just need to catch everyone that goes into that category. But at some point, you have to start anticipating what the new 53-year-old is going to be, right? Not to say that's old, but I think that's our average age, which is pretty high. And so if that's going to be the case, it, with limited resources, you're going to have to give up some things that this generation likes. For instance, getting rid of that automated teller, that system that 30 of your members used wholeheartedly. Well, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to get rid of that. Those are the types of things that at some point you're gonna have to balance out, making some people unhappy with making others happy.
That's
Very true.
interesting. Yeah.
Focus.
Rick, what about you? I mean, a member or consumer facing initiative or a bold question?
Yeah, I mean, no, it's a concern of ours. We are trying to get younger because we think, if you establish the relationships young, you're gonna do it, because we don't want to try to win them over when they're 40 or 50. Nobody ever changes their mind at that point. So, I always think about, like it would take $1,000 for me to move all my checking account and all my payments, but my kids will do it for a T-shirt. So there's the difference in the age group. So you got to get them early. We have to find out how to get competitive there. We know we won't lead, but we know with smaller institutions that there's going to be fast technology, and we can move faster as the path clears. The fintechs will be first, but we have to be more relevant. I talk to my kids about credit unions, and they just don't really see the value in the membership unless we have something there that they want. And I don't want to say, hey, this is what you do when you get older. So I think we've got to find a way to get more relevant, and it's a need for sure.
Community institutions won by convenience and service. You have to find a way to still have that, and that's hard in differentiating in the world today, especially in a digital world. So somewhere, or an AI based world, to have that, or you need to find new things that are hooks, right? So, Dan, what about y'all? What is sort of your thought on either the barriers to entry that Judson asked about, or initiative for next year? Just kind of parting thought.
Well, I don't think there's a big barrier to entry other than convincing our board that we ought to do it now as opposed to waiting to see what other people do. Because, there's nothing wrong with waiting a little bit, but, getting back to what Rick said, you want to be relevant. And so you got to start sooner as opposed to later. So I think that's where we're looking at it there.
sure we get Kevin to take a winter trip down to talk to your board about why you should be doing that. I think Sioux Falls is probably colder than Oklahoma, although I can't tell anymore. This is a cold week for all of the Midwest. So,
Yeah.
Kevin, what about you? Parting thoughts or a question back to the group? Or
No, really, the biggest struggle we have is the selection process and making sure we're partnering correctly. It's an investment. You know, sometimes you get in there and there's not a huge implementation side of it or a cost to go with that. Sometimes there's a large implementation cost to go with the technology, and you don't want to screw that up by any means, because the last thing any of us want to do is go in front of a board of directors and say, yeah, the $50,000 that we said we were going to implement this software is going to be the next biggest thing and have so much efficiency, didn't really pan out, and we're going to the next. None of us would be in a good position at that point.
well, if it's any consolation, I'm pretty sure everybody here has made some bad IT spends. There's no doubt.
It's part about the job.
Finding the way to get the products and tools to be used efficiently is going to be extremely, extremely important. There are, and in that light, not only is it the companies finding the right partners, but I think the other challenge that there's in the AI space that we're facing right now is the number of solutions out there. Or you could have an AI thing that will, light up the office the moment you walk in. I mean, that's those sensors, I suppose, but individual office, and you could spend on that. I mean, you could literally spend it in in operations, in technology, service. I know there's there's companies out there that will listen to all your calls and have AI built in and guide people along the way. And will tell you the sentiment of the callers, all of that right in real time. So I think there's a lot going on. And this is an area that's going to continue to change. I think that, starting small, taking small steps will be the way to go. Really appreciate everybody's time. I know we're right at time now. Thank you so much for joining. Like I said, we'll summarize and send some details back to everybody. Really, really appreciate your time. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good day.
Thanks,
so much.
everybody.
Thank you guys very much,
Yeah.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.